happy May the 4th, my fellow Star Wars enthusiast. Tonight, I literally just got home and I went to go see the Phantom Menace re-release, releasing for its 25th anniversary. Um, uh, and I have some thoughts. Um, Look, many people have said that this is a bad movie. I'm actually gonna quick cut this real quick. All right, I took off the jacket because it's gonna get hot in here. It's gonna get really heated. Anyway, so I went and saw the Phantom Menace re-release, and I have some thoughts. You know, the Star Wars prequels have had an interesting journey. They came out, and many people hated them. Okay, they came out, and for 15 years, everyone was like, no, these prequels are the worst thing that ever happened to Star Wars. These movies are stupid, yada, 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 right? And you have people like myself who grew up with this. This was their introduction into Star Wars. And yes, the prequels were my introduction to Star Wars. So I do have kind of a soft spot for them, you know? Um, so tonight watching the Phantom, and look, my opinion on the prequels has evolved. I think Revenge of the Sith is the one movie in the trilogy that I think is great. You know, the other two, like Attack of the Clones, I think is one of the worst movies ever made. Like, in my opinion, it's one of my least favorite movies of all time. And then you have Phantom Menace, which I am gonna say this: Phantom Menace is a bad movie. It's a bad movie. But it's not the worst movie ever. It's not the worst Star Wars movie ever. I do believe there are other Star Wars films that are far worse than this. I mean, have you seen the Clone Wars animated film? Yeah, it ain't very good. Have you seen Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker? Yeah, not very good. Have you seen Solo, a Star Wars story? Again, not very good. The thing with Phantom Menace is that, yes, it is a bad movie, but it's not so bad where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't watch this again. Like Attack of the Clones, I can't watch Attack of the Clones. In fact, here's my thing with Attack of the Clones. There are some really cool moments in it. Seeing Yoda fight for the first time. You know, seeing this army of Jedi. That's really cool stuff. But I hate those scenes. Like, it's one of those things that the negatives so outweigh the positives that even the things that I thought were positives, I'm like, you know what? No, I hate those scenes even more because that's what the movie should have been, you know? And Phantom Menace is not that. In fact, Phantom Menace has a lot of scenes that I think are really, really great, you know? I mean, obviously you got the final, like, the final lightsaber battle between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, you know? You have the pod racing scene, which is also really incredible. Like like watching that sequence on a big screen with that kind of sound, really, really incredible. But I will say this: watching the Phantom Menace, this is the thing I realized: the first 25 minutes are boring as hell. Not even boring. There's a lot of bad moments in the first 25 minutes. Like, the first 25 minutes, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, ooh, yeah, that's bad. That's bad. You know? But then, like, after the first 25 minutes, when they're heading towards Tatooine, is actually where the film kind of picks up, and the movie actually does get into, like, become interesting from that point on. Because here's the thing, like, my thing is that, you know, there have been Star Wars movies in the past that have started out slow and and don't pick up from there. I always use Solo, a Star Wars story, as a perfect example. I'll never forget, I was sitting down watching Solo, a Star Wars story, and I'm sitting there, and I remember just looking at the ground Actually, I went to go see it with a friend of mine, and I remember I just looked at the chair in front of me. I'm just like, I can't believe I'm bored watching a Star Wars movie. You know, I've never, and I will say, give the Phantom Menace this. I never once felt bored watching it. Even tonight, when I was watching it in the theater, I never felt bored watching it. Again, the first 25 minutes, yeah, first 25 minutes are a little boring, and it's kind of, but also, I also just feel like the first 25 minutes are pure utter garbage, you know. And the first 25 minutes also, what it does is that it also kind of just, it lets you know right away that the dialogue is not going to be great. There is some really horrendous dialogue in the movie. And not even just in the first 25 minutes, throughout the entire movie altogether, there's some really, really, really bad dialogue. Like half of the stuff that these actors are kind of, half of the lines that are written are just, it almost feels like George. Here's the thing I've always said about George Lucas. He, as far as creating a story, he's a master at that. You know, creating a long form narrative that we can get invested in. He's great at that. But I don't think he's a good writer. I don't. I don't think he's a good writer. I don't think he doesn't understand the concept of allowing people to, you're like, this whole idea of like, you're not going to understand what the characters are feeling unless they tell you how they're feeling. You know, that's why he has Vader in Revenge of the Sith going, no, because he doesn't understand the concept of, no, you can understand those emotions through visuals, you know. And I don't know, like I was, and watching the movie tonight, I felt that same thing of like, wow, this is not good. This dialogue is really, like, it almost felt like I'm sitting there, I'm like, who wrote this? Like, who wrote this? And I know who wrote it, you know. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I will say this, though. Like I said, there are some really good I'll go so far as to say this. There are some great moments in The Phantom Menace. There are some really great moments in The Phantom Menace. And I will not take away the fact that there are really great moments in the film. But again, that doesn't take away from the fact that this is overall a really bad movie. But I will say this. Again, I think it's better than Attack of the Clones. I think it's better than The Rise of Skywalker. I think it's better than Solo, a Star Wars story. You know? And I think for me, you know, because before I went into the movie, I started thinking to myself, how come people have shifted their perspective on the prequels? Why is it that people now look at the prequels and go, yeah, the prequels aren't that bad. The prequels are not that bad. Why is that? Why is that? And I think the reason why that is because look at what we had with Disney Star Wars. Now, I'll say this. I am somebody who has liked a majority of Disney Star Wars. There have been some things I don't like. Again, Rise of Skywalker. There have been some, like Book of Boba Fett, I thought was a massive letdown. I hate Bad Batch. You know, there's a lot of things that have come out of Disney Star Wars that I haven't been a fan of. But overall, I will say this. There are more that I like about Disney Star Wars than I don't. I mean, I think Andor is the best thing Star Wars has ever put out since they were bought by Disney. You know, you know, this is going to get me into some trouble. I love The Last Jedi. Yeah, Yeah, I'll you know what? I'll take a quick pause to let all the trolls hate me for this. Go. Okay, you've had your moment. So I and you know, I don't think Force Awakens is bad. Heck, I love Mandalorian season 1 and 2. Season 3 was a little bit of a letdown, but I like seasons 1 and 2. I overall liked Ahsoka. I hated the ending, but I liked Ahsoka. Um, I was disappointed with Obi-Wan. I was disappointed with Book of Boba Fett. Um, but again, there are a majority of things from Disney Star Wars that I love. I mean, the Jedi, the Jedi Fallen Order games have been really good. You know, I love a majority of the Star Wars novel. I still think Lords of the Sith is probably the best Star Wars novel we've ever had. Hands down, I think it's the best Star Wars novel. And for those of you who haven't read Lords of the Sith, go and read it. It's really fantastic. So I have been a fan of I have loved a majority of Disney Star Wars. You know, I still haven't been to Galaxy's Edge though. I really want to go to Galaxy's Edge. Anyway, I'll put that on the bucket list. But but I have liked a majority of what Disney has done with Star Wars. But I will acknowledge the fact that it has not been up to par with the original trilogy, minus Andor and The Last Jedi. But that's a me thing, you know. Personally, that's a me thing. I know a lot of people hate The Last Jedi, and that's fine. You know what? Everyone, movies are subjective. So if you hate The Last Jedi, that's fine. I don't care because I love it. Um. So yeah, I mean, like, but bringing it back to the point here, I think that's the reason why the prequels all of a sudden are looked at now more fondly and people like them more, because what we've had with Disney Star Wars has been a little disappointing. I mean, you know, think about it. Like, think about how like Mandalorian season 1 and 2 came out and they were great. Oh my gosh, Star Wars is back, baby. Star Wars is back. Then Book of Boba Fett came out. Then Obi-Wan came out. And it just feels like even the Disney Plus shows have kind of started declining, as far as quality goes, you know. I am looking forward to The Acolyte. I'm looking forward to Skeleton Crew. But anyway, and I also think the Clone Wars animated series has also helped the prequels, because now there are certain things that were in the Clone Wars that, like, I'll be honest, there are a lot of things in the Clone Wars, and I was watching it tonight, watching the Phantom Menace tonight. I was like, oh, all of a sudden, certain things like Darth Maul, like, I got chills every time Darth Maul. And not to say I didn't before, but now, like, I was invested in the character because I know what his backstory is, and I know where his story eventually goes and how tragic his story ultimately ends up becoming. You know, I'll go so far as to say this: I think Darth Maul's story is more of a tragedy than Anakin Skywalker's story, and people are going to hate me all they want for that, but I don't care. Again, my personal opinion. So for me, I just think since Disney bought Star Wars, and because we have had so much content from Disney, from Star Wars since Disney bought it, we now look at a lot of people are now looking at it and comparing it to what came before, comparing it to the prequels. And look, there are some people who still think the prequels are pure garbage. And hey, look, I still think Attack of the Clones is pure garbage, okay? So I'm obviously in that same boat. I think Attack of the Clones is one of the worst movies ever made. But I also have to acknowledge that the prequels had a plan from beginning to end. They were thoroughly mapped out. With Disney Star Wars, it's more of a kind of, okay, you do your thing, you do your thing, you do your thing. You know, there's nobody there is actually sitting and coming up with a plan for like what stories do we want to tell, how are these all connected. They're not thinking that way. It's more like JJ, you do your movie, Ryan, you do your movie, you know, and that kind of mentality is what I think also kind of ruined Disney Star Wars for a little bit. But anyway, I'm going off a complete other tangent that I could spend I can honestly spend a whole hour talking about that stuff, and maybe I will. Maybe I'll do like an editorial. Maybe on the podcast I'll talk about it more. I don't know. I've already started putting the show notes together for the next month's podcast, and we already have a lot of stuff to cover. So, but at some point maybe I'll discuss it at some point. But looking back, after seeing The Phantom Menace tonight in theaters, looking back, is The Phantom Menace a bad movie? The answer to that question, to me, is yes. Yes, The Phantom Menace is a bad movie. But it's not as bad. It is not the worst Star Wars movie ever. I know I have heard so many people put it as the worst Star Wars movie, and it's not. It's not. The Phantom Menace, I'll go so far as to say, has great moments in it. You know, has some fantastic moments in it. And a bit of a personal connection with me. For the longest time, Phantom Menace was my favorite Star Wars movie because it was the first Star Wars movie I had ever seen. You know? And it was my introduction to Star Wars. You know? And again, people who grew up who were kids when the prequels came out. Again, that was their introduction into this galaxy far, far away. You know? So I look at Phantom Menace and I can say, yes, it's a bad movie. But I can also sit here and say that I do have some kind of a soft spot for it. You know, again, I am acknowledging that the movie is not good. But I'm also not going to say that it's the worst Star Wars movie ever. Because it's not. It's not. But anyway, this has been 20 minutes. This has been a 20-minute thing. Usually when I make these kind of videos, they're usually like less than 20. They're usually like anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes long. But I just, coming out of the theater tonight and seeing this movie made me kind of think about things, and I ultimately was kind of thinking about why all of a sudden are these prequels getting all the love that they never had before. And it was kind of a discussion that I was having in my head, and I was like, you know what? I should just put this all into a video. So that will do it for this video, guys. Did you guys go see The Phantom Menace? Let me know. What do you guys love the prequels? Do you guys hate the prequels? Let me know. Jump in the comments. That will do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I think you guys should subscribe to the channel because Zeke the Geek said so. And I will talk to you guys later. And may the 4th be with you.